How are you, my friend?
Hey, happy
Easter.
New Week. Yeah, happy Easter. When is this one coming out?
I don't know. What month is this? May?
May. Yeah, Easter's over, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe there's an Easter somewhere.
Oh, maybe.
Isn't Easter the celebration of Jesus being resurrected or coming back from the dead?
It is.
So, don't Christians really celebrate that every day? It's a Christian thing, right?
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Well, I think so, yeah, because somebody had to get resurrected for there to be an Easter.
But it's some form of celebration where it's praising Jesus, I think.
Yeah.
Let's come right out of the gate and, offend somebody.
Oh, I think we took care of that already. Uh-oh.
Why not?
Uh-oh. Yeah, no, that's, so let's see, what is the next holiday? Memorial Day.
Right, which is good because that's not really a religious holiday. There's nobody who, is either going to be offended or, pissed off that they got left out. It's a holiday that everybody can celebrate, in this country anyway.
We're all in favor of, remembering those that gave their lives for their country.
Are we, though? We were talking a while back, maybe last week, about the whole, remember I said Ted Cruz took some heat? I find myself bringing him up more and more. I don't know why. It's not like I'm a Ted Cruz fan, but I find myself bringing him up because he's in the news a lot.
Well, like any good TV show, we need a protagonist. And,
so is he our protagonist?
Well, I think because Trump is out, right, for right now. There's just nothing worth saying about him, right? It's all in the past.
There is. He's got some rallies coming up that he's going to do.
If we're lucky, he'll catch something.
Like what?
Well, I don't know. COVID again. MRSA. Yeah. Anything.
You think he's getting any? You think he's? Not from Melania. I don't think.
I doubt if he cares.
Is he so toxic now that no woman would touch him?
Oh, could he cheat with somebody? You mean, Melania?
Yeah.
She could kill him.
Yeah. Well, she could do that anyway.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think really, to be honest with you, I think at this point it's more about Ivanka for him.
What, that he loves Ivanka?
I'll just leave it up to you.
Well, he, is his net worth, his wealth, has it been so damaged and diminished that, these Russian mail-order brides wouldn't look at him as a catch because he's not really rich anymore?
That's a great question. I don't know how that all works. I think probably, I don't know. He probably hasn't had any action since he became president.
I was thinking the same thing. I don't know why I was thinking about that, but it crossed my mind.
Well, he's old, and I think it's more about McDonald's than anything else.
That's where he gets his high. McDonald's, Arby's.
Well, obviously he's overindulging in something. So it's McDonald's or donuts or something. He doesn't drink, so from what I understand. So
yeah, that's what he says. He lost a brother to alcoholism, right?
No, his brother is a judge, right?
I thought he had a brother
sister
that died because he was an alcoholic.
He did have a brother that passed away. Don't know if he was an alcoholic. His sister is the appeals court judge or something. And had to resign
when Trump took office.
Afterwards, as it looked like, that shouldn't have been a problem. But afterwards, she finally had to resign because she was just getting sucked into the graft.
So she was basically felt like she was going to be canceled, so she had no choice but to resign.
She thought, because the scrutiny is intense, especially after you're such a huge jackass. So,
but like we always say, none of that was a surprise, right?
Yeah,
we knew who he was.
No, so you've got the. You have the Trump rallies coming up.
Yes. Will you be watching?
No.
Are you going to renew your Newsmax and what is it, OAN subscriptions?
Oh, that's good, Travis. Yeah,
I'm listening.
I said them enough times. You finally heard them. Huh? Always when I say Newsmax or OAN, his eyes kind of like, what?
Well, the fact that you know so much about it,
right? Sinclair Broadcasting. That's the other one you want to know about. Yeah, that's so funny that now a lot of people consider Fox News to be middle of the road compared to OAN.
They've always kind of been that way, I think.
Well, then the people that watch Fox News consider MSNBC to be straight communist propaganda.
So on that point, what about Ted Cruz? Is he because I don't know that much about him. And again, so he's our protagonist.
Rat boy.
But has he gone off the deep end? Is he going further right? Or has he always been that way?
Well, you know what I think is that he has I think he's lost.
Weight?
No,
well, looks like he's found that.
So, I think he's lost what little gravitas he had, from being a presidential contender. I mean, he let Trump, shit talk his wife, call it, talk.
What did he say about his wife?
That she was fat and ugly.
He did?
Yeah, during the primary they were in, right?
That's funny.
He said that his dad was involved in the Kennedy assassination. And
so Trump was up there, and Ted Cruz would be like, blah, 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 your policy on Mexico sucks. And he's like, well, your wife is fat and ugly. Yeah. Like that. I don't remember that.
Exactly. Like, what does Ted Cruz know? Look at the ugly fat broad he got for a wife. That's exactly. And then,
because Trump owned the Miss America pageant, so he's qualified to speak on what a beauty queen is.
Yeah, really. You can see the recordings of Rat Boy of Ted Cruz after Trump said those things about his family, where he's the tough talking Texan, which just is not what he's ever going to be. And he's looking at the camera going, you could say this and you could disagree with me, but when you attack my family, that's a red line. And you're going to do what about it, you cowardly piece of shit? And so, and then as soon as he thinks it's politically, profitable for him, he jumps right back on the Trump train, and he's the biggest Trump supporter ever. I think personally he's lost. I mean, when your integrity goes down that far, I think even people you don't give a shit about or wouldn't think would care about integrity lose respect for you, right? So I don't.
Everybody's got the integrity monitor, the integrity antenna up in full blast, looking to catch somebody fucking violate whatever bullshit.
Well, I guess that's a way to look at integrity.
Speaking of fat people, since you brought that up, did you see this story in the news that the airlines may start weighing people before they get on a plane?
Really?
Yeah.
What the hell would they do that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of important to know what the total weight of the tube is going to be before you try to get off the ground.
Yeah, I guess I always thought they already had that piece of information.
Well, I was reading about this, and obviously any bag that you bring on, they're going to weigh that, or at least your check bag, they're going to weigh that. Yeah. But I guess there's some old formula for the average weight of a man and the average weight of a woman, plus I think there's a winter rate and a summer rate, so assuming you have a heavy coat and things like that. And they use that to do the average calculation based on the number of people on the plane. And, of course, because I'm an aviation expert, I do know this, that you have to calculate. Every plane has a maximum takeoff weight. You've got, fuel calculations, temperature, runway length, all that stuff. But apparently Americans are so fat that these numbers are out of calculation. They're, 20, 30, 50 years old.
Right.
And so the reason why they've decided this is a problem is because it's been a problem. Like there's been a couple of near misses where maybe planes aren't getting off the ground.
Right.
That's pretty scary.
I know on lighter flights they will. I think what they do first is they just try to place people in seats according to what the right weight distribution be for the plane. So,
right. Yeah, the balance, like you had on your Hawaii trip.
Yeah, and one time I volunteered to move from the front to the back or something. They were like, hey, if you don't mind sitting, if you have anybody that doesn't mind sitting in the back, just come up to the desk. And so I'm like, hey, what do you think? Should we just do that? Yeah, okay, let's go. So I go up and go, hey, we'll do it. They're like, awesome, perfect, you're the best. Yeah, okay, all right, take it easy. There's too much excitement about how happy you are. I get it. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes they make you sit certain places. And I don't know if they're just eyeballing it, which wouldn't be hard to do, But.
I mean, I think if they really start enforcing this, and from what I read, it was basically going to be a few airlines, maybe the TSA, I don't know, doing a couple of tests to basically try to, reevaluate what the number should be. I don't know that they're literally going to make you stand on a scale before you get on the plane, and people are mortified about that. But assuming it turns into a big problem, who do you think is going to complain more about whatever that ends up being? I can just hear it now. Civil rights violation. Is that going to be the Democrats or the Republicans complaining more about that?
Wow, that's a good question. Whichever one it is, it'll only be the fat ones.
And what is that? I mean, and the skinny people they are going to say, hey, of course we have to be weighed because I want to know that I'm getting on a plane and we've got your numbers calculated safely and we're all going to make it.
Well, you know, and you don't actually have to. I mean, you're showing them your driver's license every time you get on the plane. So,
you ever do the peekaboo on that when you see somebody's license and you look at it and you're like looking at that number and then you look at them? It's either how old is that picture or, you know.
Well, not close enough to see their license. You know what I mean? Now, but might see the. I'm sure the TSA guys do it a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And they get the eye thing going.
Yeah.
But they have the weight right there. So, I mean, it doesn't mean the weight's right, but, you know.
What about just a secret scale when you go to show the TSA person your driver's license? You're standing on a scale, but you don't know it, and on their end, they've got the view where they can see what the number is.
Right.
And they enter that into your flight data.
Yeah, which, you know, I mean, that might be enough, right? How accurate does it really need to be, right? So, and maybe it doesn't even need to be for everybody. So if the person looks normal, okay, they probably fit in.
But it needs to be accurate enough to where there's an issue that they have to update these numbers.
Well, the place you should do it is in the scanner then, right? There you're standing there. You have nothing in your pockets. Nobody else can be. Your kids can't be standing with you on your feet. You're in the scanner.
Right.
Now, just the metal detector thing, you're not in there long enough. I don't know if you could get a weight, but sure it could be done.
What about if there's 200 people on the plane, the first 190 get on, you're running late, they've all been weighed, and because everybody else was overweight, you can't get on?
Well, I would assume that would be the case. What are they going to do?
I don't know.
Crash the plane because, you know, I mean, hey, if that's not a possibility, why the fuck are they doing it?
Well, I think there's things you can do. You need to, you know, does your bubbly water making you burpee?
Oh my God! Sorry,
I was trying to get you to burp on cue a couple weeks ago.
I moved away. Go ahead.
You could take fuel out of the plane, which isn't really good if you need to get somewhere.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough on a Hawaii flight.
You can extend your go on a longer runway or something. Like if you have
slower.
You don't want to go slower.
That doesn't help. Okay.
You mean slower in the air?
Yeah.
Once you get in the air, I think you're fine. It's just getting off the ground. You know that very crucial part of the flight. You know where you need to get airborne.
You know, I used to kind of. There's 2 times that I'm nervous. Only taking off and landing, right? And used to be the landing wasn't as much of a deal as I used to just have this vision of, you know, starting to lift off the runway and just something going right, hitting a pocket or a vacuum or I don't know.
Well, do you know the interesting point about that is the 2 most dangerous parts of the flight are takeoffs and landings.
Well,
so you got that part right.
To be a fucking pilot to figure that one out. Oh my God!
Like if you had the wind shear, if you're going to have wind shear, you know, or you take off and you're maybe 50 feet off the ground, you have a gust of wind, slam you back down.
Is that what that is?
That'll probably suck.
Yeah.
And then same thing on landing. I don't know what the statistics say, which one you're likely to survive.
How do you think we're doing? You're the air crash expert. How do you think the world is doing in general regarding airplane crashes? Is it the same? Is it better than it used to be? Has it always been good?
I should look that up and report back. But what I think is that as far as aviation safety, I mean, there's like an international database you can look up all of the crashes. But I think 2020 and probably 2021 are pretty good years as far as airline safety because there was far less flights, and all the older planes for the most part were grounded. There's been some high profile incidents that we've talked about, you know, like some engines blowing up.
Well, 737 MAX too have not been flying, so
exactly
they had 2 crashes and down.
What seems to be, and again, I don't know if this is an increase or just you see it more, but I've noticed more news stories about private aircraft that have had problems.
Oh yeah,
you know, whether it's a single pilot or guy and his family, or even a corporate plane or something like that going down. And I don't know if it's because there's just more of those planes because commercial flights are down, or if it's just more in the news. I don't know, but that kind of always makes you wonder. Like, you know, there's people I've known in my life that have had private pilots licenses, and there's people you're like, would I go up with that person? Probably not.
Ay. That's funny.
So back on this Ted Cruz thing, though.
Yeah.
Do you? What I was starting to say about the military is he's continuing to take heat because, and I mentioned this, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, where he made a comment about the military being woke and how we can't compete with the Russians because we have sissies in the military and all of our policies, and the Russians have trained killers. But now the Democrats are basically misconstruing that, of course, and twisting his words and saying he's a pro-Russian military guy. That's not what he was saying at all. And again, I'm not a Ted Cruz fan. I just remember reading the story, and I'm saying he was making a joke, I think, and pointing out the fact that,
pro-Russian military, huh?
Yeah, by saying, and he posted this video of like these Aryan soldiers. Are there Aryans in Russia?
No,
that's Germany.
Not Russia. Save that for the Nazi reference
right
later.
So I got a Nazi reference for you too.
Okay, good.
So he's got these Russian soldiers that are ripped and they're all 6'5" and they're shirtless and they eat nuts and bolts for breakfast. And then he shows the U.S. military at gay weddings and all this stuff. And he was saying our military is woke, which is a whole other issue, right? And all of the claims in there are problematic. But he certainly wasn't saying it was pro-Russia, and that's what all these Democrats are saying. Is look, he's in bed with the Russians because he likes the Russian military more than the U.S. military.
Well, I mean that's a precedent set by the former president.
He liked the Russian military better.
Well, he just liked all things Russian. I mean, if there was a Russian dick, he would suck it.
Maybe.
So that's it. Yeah.
Your other favorite person that you like to talk about, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Mm-hmm. And Matt Gaetz.
What's up with him now?
Well, his ex-girlfriend is turning state's evidence, so shouldn't be long for him now.
So you always bring this up, but I'm not necessarily up to speed on his shortcomings, but he has the buddy that was a child sex trafficker.
Yeah, he has a friend who was a county tax collector in somewhere in the South, and
not in government other than was he like a local government guy or what?
Yeah, well, county tax collector.
So is that like the controller?
Tax collector.
Is that the title?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Tax collector, and so it was very. So my other favorite word. So he was very corrupt. So, he was running all kinds of scams and shit, and taking bribes and all that. And then it turns out once he started getting investigated for all that, the FBI found out that he's actually been, sex trafficker, child sex trafficker, and he's pleading guilty and turning state's evidence. So between him and Matt Gaetz' former girlfriend or whatever, it looks kind of tough for him, right? And then he's out on some kind of tour with Marjorie Taylor Greene and some
Gaetz
other,
is?
Yeah, and some other, I've forgotten the guy's name, some other Republican operative shithead, and they're out promoting the big lie, the election lie, that everything was full of election fraud, and now this. So I don't know what's going to happen, but in Arizona they've had this. And by the way, it's not the internet ninjas; it was cyber ninjas.
That's the reference you were looking for.
Yeah, it wasn't internet ninjas. It's cyber ninjas in Arizona have been running this sham audit of the 2020 election, and so that in and of itself is kind of meaningless because even the Republican officials, it's the Republican Party. In support of the big lie
in Arizona,
that forced this audit thing. It's not Republican state officials; they're actually against it because the whole thing is.
You're talking about the Arizona state
audit.
Government.
Oh yeah, they're against it. But does
that make you feel better?
No. Well, yeah, I mean better than if they're all for it,
right?
But that's because they're starting to look, terrible, right? And so nothing will come of this. They're not doing anything that's even close to any kind of real election audit protocol or anything. So I think that's all going to crash and burn. Even the Republican officials in that state are calling for an end to be put to it. But the damage is being done because they're using that audit, even though there's been nothing found, as justification for multiple state audits in other states, and this is just part of the degradation of the confidence in elections, and the complete lack of concern by anybody in the Republican Party for our democracy. So it's just a complete breakdown, and it's just more ongoing damage.
When
right?
you say audit, is this on the voting machines? Is this the whole Dominion thing?
No, this is not voting machines. They've actually given these fucking lunatics the actual ballots.
So wait a minute,
Paper
go back.
ballots.
You're talking about the cyber ninjas. The cyber ninjas aren't a real thing, but how are they controlling all of this auditing?
They're some kind of company. They've never done an
private
audit.
company.
Yeah, private company, and they've never done an election audit.
But they were hired.
They were hired by the Arizona Republican Party.
I see. So then, which they I guess can do, right? Make a private contract with this company.
I guess.
And then why would what is being audited then? So it's not the voting machines; it's the actual paper ballots.
So theoretically, they are going through the ballots looking for fraud and the paper ballots, and so. You can see pictures of this. They've got like a Lazy Susan. Everybody know what a Lazy Susan is, right? Go to a Chinese restaurant. And so they've got this Lazy Susan with kind of like small little easels on it. So you put the ballot on this, and it gets passed around the table. And they've got multiple people at a round table, and each of them look at it. It comes from front, looks at it, and then they take it off and they put it over. And then someone else picks it up. And they're looking for traces of bamboo in the paper because they're saying that, and this sounds pretty serious and likely, that several million ballots came from Southeast Asia, so that the paper that they're fake ballots from Southeast Asia, and the paper will contain traces of bamboo. So they're looking for that.
This story gets better and better. So go back. I want to peel back this onion for a second.
Go ahead.
Who had the ballots? Whose possession were they in?
Well, following an election, the state election officials have control of the ballots, and they keep them for a certain prescribed period of time, right? And there's always has been strict chain of custody requirements.
That was going to be my question. So how does the Republican Party, just the GOP there in Arizona, but not the elected officials, hence the term official?
Mm-hmm. I think there was a
court ordered them to turn it over?
Court ordered them to release the ballots to the cyber ninjas for an independent audit of the 2020 election.
I mean, what's in a name, really, especially like, I don't know, couch funeral? But if you were going to audit...
If these assholes were running a podcast, that would be fine.
But if you were going to run an official audit over something as big and contentious as a presidential election, would you have any confidence in the company running the program called the Cyber Ninjas?
Not me.
I mean, like, who's running the Lazy Susan? Is it like Donatello and Leonardo and whatever the fucking Ninja Turtles are?
Yeah, it's just sad, really. It's so sad. And then reporters had to and observers finally had to go to court weeks after this thing started. It's been going on for weeks. And then I think they had to shut it down last week because they're doing it in some kind of sports arena in Arizona. And they had...
And sports are back, so now we got to do sports.
Yeah, so they had to pack it all up. So, I mean, the whole security of the ballots themselves, I mean, even if they claim to come up with something, it would be meaningless. So it would only be fodder for to support the lies that are already out there. Because nobody, the chain of custody has been broken, so nobody could. I mean, there's absolutely nothing to stop them from
committing fraud.
Yeah, in the process. So it's just stupid. And all of the elected officials in that state, in Arizona, election officials, right, have protested this from the very beginning.
What agency is that? Is it like Secretary of State?
Well, you have elected election officials, right? Elected or appointed in every state. And, they can be either party, just depends, where they came from. And these are typically county elections were run county by county. So
what's
and
up
then
with...
there's a Secretary of State that is typically in charge of it, right?
What's up with the paper then? So let's say you're talking about the paper company who made the paper was somewhere in Southeast Asia and has bamboo. So what?
No.
What's the...
No. So these are the ballots from the Arizona election.
Yeah.
Paper ballots that were whatever
mailed to people,
mailed in, brought in, filled out in the thing.
Yeah.
And then they're going through all the ballots, regardless of where they came from, looking for traces of bamboo.
Well, what's that?
That would indicate that those ballots had been fraudulently brought in and stuck into the mix that they were produced, filled out already
I see.
in Southeast Asia.
So in other words, the official ballots that were sent out to the residents of Arizona, wherever that paper was made, those are legitimate ballots. The state knows who made those and how many they produced.
Right.
And there's some allegation, I guess is the best way to say it, that there's an unknown amount of bamboo paper ballots produced and imported by Southeast Asia that have Trump's name on it?
Yeah, that have Biden's name on it.
Oh, Biden's name on it.
Right.
That's what I meant.
That's what they're saying. Hey, so I mean, once again, just another ridiculous racist thing. Hey, fake, fraudulent ballots from Southeast Asia.
How did they get to
bamboo.
that? Where did that? Why that? Did they pull that out of their hat?
Well, probably out of their ass.
Is that because they're trying to figure out? Well, the Canadians don't really make bamboo, so where does this bamboo come from? Is that what
the Canadians? Oh my God!
Is there any paper ballots with bamboo? Are they finding any of that?
I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, who gives a fuck what's in the paper for the ballots, right? I mean, the idea that there's zero. This is just some stupid shit they made up to. I mean, and that's not the only thing they're looking for, right? So. Who knows?
Are they accusing the fucking progressives that it's like the paper straws? They're making bamboo. They're trying to be sustainable with these fake ballots.
Obviously, they're accusing Democrats of rigging the election, of bringing in fake ballots that they had made, produced, and filled out in Southeast Asia, and then bringing them into the I guess the corrupt Democratic election workers, in that state. Arizona, pretty full of that kind of thing, right? It's just so stupid.
So of all the stuff that you just explained, how do you see it? Are you more, like, let's say that there was at the end of this Cyber Ninja report, is there going to be a report, do we think, from the Cyber Ninjas?
But I do have some numbers here.
All right.
Here's a little bit of voter fraud information for you, right? A recent study done over 15 years. This has nothing to do with this year's election, but over a 15-year period, 3 sets of 10
plus a 1
plus 1
yep.
out of 1 billion votes cast over 15 years that were fraudulent.
Yeah, but that's 15 years adjusted for inflation, so that would probably make it like 47.
Well, that makes it more on my side than yours.
Is that just Arizona or nationwide?
No, that's just a survey regarding.
Look at you prepared today.
Yeah, I heard it, so I wrote it down. It's just in general speaking to the whole idea. Look, election fraud is a construct of the Republican Party, part of a strategy that they've had for quite a while, and I think we've just never seen such blatant, ridiculous lying in association with it. But it's been around for a while. And then over the weekend, I'm pretty sure, a video came out of representatives from the Heritage Foundation, which is the number one right-wing think tank political arm of the Republican Party.
Was it like a nonprofit?
It's a think tank, right? It's supposed to be. They are supposed to be constructing, Republican talking points and plats where their talking paper comes from. Right?
Yeah, the new Karl Rove. Then
just look up Hunting. Yeah, I mean, they're all in it. Heritage Foundation, and so they were showing. From a while ago, I think maybe before this last election, they were showing like I don't know if this was a Zoom or she was on a stage, but there was somebody from the Heritage Foundation just blatantly talking about how pushing the idea of election fraud, even with no substantiation, will help Republicans win elections.
That's probably a true statement.
Yeah, well, there's video of her doing it. I mean,
just that actual statement is probably true, right? If they say something like that, among other things, that's going to keep their base angry and a reason why they need to come out and vote because the elections are being stolen from them.
Right.
Therefore, Republicans come out and vote.
Hey, I'm not suggesting anybody be arrested for this, but I think it goes to, unfortunately, there are lots of people, and for those of you listening, I don't need to name you because you know who you are, that that are under some kind of ridiculous notion that there was some kind of significant fraud perpetrated by Democrats or liberals or the deep state or some baloney. And the idea that the number one consulting association, company, whatever, nonprofit, the Heritage Foundation, it's just proof that they have been planning strategically to use fraudulent, baseless election fraud claims as a strategy to reduce, voter turnout and to prepare the citizens of the United States to accept these ridiculous claims of voter fraud that have no goddamn basis.
But you just said the magic word, which is strategy. So are they just using it as a strategy, and is that different from, like, okay, go back, and I think I used the word strategy with a lot of the voter suppression laws, and so
which this is all connected to, right?
Okay,
and so what she was saying was, hey, this strategy has, so all these massive number of voter suppression laws that I've been reporting to you about, they've all come. Like when we have a trade association issue, we send out a boilerplate to our people saying, hey, here's the thing, send this to your congressman or your senator or whatever. Here, we've already written it for you. That's what they're doing about they're writing the voter suppression laws. They're almost identical in every state. And then they're using the strategy that the Heritage Foundation has put together for the Republican Party to do what they've done and queue up the possibility for there are actually 47 state legislatures putting through voter suppression, over 200 different voter suppression laws right now. And so, I mean, if you're about to tell me, great, that sounds like they're just engaging in normal political strategy, I might have to come across the table.
Well, it kind of does, even though I wasn't going to say that. That wasn't the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing about that, though, is what I was going to say is the best way to get your people to come out and vote is to create a crisis, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, you fabricate a crisis, or you shed light on a perceived crisis or some type of...
That might be okay if it was... beavers are blocking up too many dams in South Carolina or some shit like that. But this, this is not on that level, right? So, listen, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not going to take everybody to the end conclusion that they should form from this. This is corrupt, ridiculous. This is not, is it legal or illegal? I don't know. I really don't know, but it's not right. I can tell you that. So,
well, it's not right in the fact that statement is not based in fact. In other words, if the statement is, you fellow Republicans, you need to come out and vote because the last election was stolen from us because there was fraudulent votes and ballots and everything else.
And we need to make laws about it.
Yeah. So if that's the statement, that's not a true statement. But
right.
if you just stand it on its own and say, hey, come out and vote because, well, how did she word it? Because there's voter fraud. Come out and vote. We need you.
Well, I think anything connected to all of this is just so. It's just wrong. I don't know. Sometimes you just have to boil it down to the premise of right and wrong, right? So some things you do in the pursuit of politics, are justifiable, and some things are just not. And
let me ask you another question about strategy, and just I'm thinking of gamesmanship here. So if you think about strategy with the Republicans and the Democrats, wouldn't it be very easy for the Democrats, because they got to have their bullhorn too, and they got to be out there and sounding the alarm to their base as to why they need to come out and vote again, whether it's the midterms or presidential elections, local elections, everything in between. Wouldn't their easiest strategy to simply point out and repost all the crazy bullshit, stuff that the Republicans are spewing, and just leave it at that, rather than double down on some of the more extreme left of center policies? It would just seem to me strategically, if you need to get more Democrats to vote or more people to vote Democratic, then you don't go to the extreme. You just say, hey, you hear what these fucking heritage think tank people are saying? You hear about these ninjas in Arizona? Shouldn't you? Does that make sense?
They're doing that. right?
Are they? It's because that's. I mean, they are
how
doing.
do you think I've heard about it? I mean, you don't think
it was
I'm
in your talking points paper this morning.
I don't think I'm doing an independent investigation of this.
No, I know they are, but well, I guess my point is they should just stop at that because they are doing that, but then they're in my opinion they're casting a shadow of a doubt by bringing in all this other shit, all the stuff I complain about as far as what the Democrats want to do, everything from spending to free this, free that.
Yeah, well, you know, tragically for you, I mean, I think the thing you should be upset about is, I mean, you don't seem very upset about what their strategy is, and at somehow maybe for you it's like, listen, it's not illegal. It's a tool at their disposal. You know, the Democrats should just fight fire with fire. I mean, which I don't agree with. You don't fight things that are morally corrupt by doing the opposite version of them or something like that. Yeah, you do expose them. You do talk about them. And at some point, not necessarily you, but somebody from the other side will say, oh, you're just crying about it. You're just whining about it, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's, you know, and so, I mean, I don't know what you're really saying. Like, what should they just talk about it?
I guess for me,
they're passing law. They're passing laws off this.
They, as in Republicans,
yeah, that are going to seriously hurt real people.
Okay, so here's my next question: is what's your sense on the Republican base? How many of what percentage, I guess, is the better way to ask it, of the Republican base is still on board with the election fraud issue?
Well, the base, not the elected officials that represent the party.
Yeah, I guess that's why I asked it. What's the pulse of the nation? Do you know, or what are the Democratic talking points papers saying this morning, as far as, hey, the majority of Republicans are on board with voter fraud, or is it 35%, or do you know? I don't know.
Well, I think if you're just talking about people that would identify as Republicans, I haven't heard the numbers recently, but I'm going to guess that it's probably, of them, it's probably 70%.
You think it's that high?
That's the only numbers I can remember hearing. Other than that, I don't interact with enough of them to know.
Not that you know of.
Not that I know of. Yeah,
that's an alarming number. I wouldn't have said it was that high. And I think
70% of Republicans.
Right, 70% of Republicans.
Not 70% of not 70% of the voting public or anything like that.
Right.
The numbers right now are indicating that Biden for Biden and for the policies he proposed, the numbers are anywhere from 53 to 70%. So wide support throughout the country. Bipartisan. That means bipartisan. Well, his approval rating, and then when you're talking about some of the big plans, the big legislative things that the infrastructure bill and the whatever Relief for America plan or whatever he calls that thing, there's widespread bipartisan public support for all of it, and Biden's approval ratings and so forth are up in the high 50s or something right now. So, I mean, it's obvious that the belief in the big lie is not held by a majority of Americans, but certainly by a majority of Republicans.
So how does that iron out in the wash then? Because, I mean, I always throw out the 50% number. So if it's 70% of Republicans believe in the big lie and 99% of Democrats don't.
Republicans probably make up 30% of the population.
So then why would it be so?
Well, Democrats probably make up more like 50%, maybe more, maybe 60%. And so when Republicans do win things like electing fucktard to be president.
It's so hard for you to say when Republicans win things like these evildoers.
It's because they somehow unify and then bring in independents and other groups that they bring along, like all the white supremacists in the country, all the disaffected white workers that think they've been left behind. I mean, and hey, look, I mean, if they were acquiring support of those groups through legitimate means, I wouldn't have any problem. But they acquire support of those kind of fringe groups by just lying constantly about what's happening, why what is actually happening is happening. Their reasons for it and stuff, are just lies all the time. I mean, we just gone through, before Biden came into office, we just went through four years, not counting any of the presidential term lying that went on. Just, 2 or 3 lies or more every day straight out of the president's mouth, combined with lies that were promulgated throughout his administration by his minions, right? And to this day, we're still suffering from the promulgation of the big lie, from this election, which is the worst one of all. I mean, as he spent 4 years decimating the government, right, in the name of whatever, I don't know what it was, but, I mean, we can all agree that we don't want to have more government employees or more government waste than there has to be, but gutting the State Department, gutting all of the cabinet offices and the support functions and all the different things, that's just left us ill prepared to deal with things. And I think we're recovering at a pretty fast pace as those offices get staffed and those departments have people appointed, and we stop engaging in all the destructive bullshit that the Trump administration engaged in regards to public agencies. But it's just this big lie thing about the election is let me just put it succinctly one time. It is undermining the premise on which our democracy stands.
Yeah, so let me dissect some of what you said, and I'm not sure if I heard these words correctly.
No, don't worry, I'll correct you.
In that tirade, but I don't think it's a true statement that Republicans listen. If you have a guy, the president, who's telling lies, Mr. Liar Pants, telling every word out of his mouth is a lie, that's different than people who might tend to vote Republican. They're not voting Republican because they're being lied to, and everything that they hold of value in the Republican Party position is a lie. I think a lot of those people might vote Republican to stop Democrats. And I think it just everything that we've discussed and talked about on this podcast, and Trump, that even has perpetuated since his removal from office, is all true. And that's why I'm just personally trying to gauge, kind of what the pulse of the nation is. Certainly the core Trump base believes in this big lie theory, but personally, and this is just my own gut feeling, I don't have any stats to back this up, is it really a big lie in the sense that how many people actually believe it? So here we are, you're talking to somebody who identifies as a centrist. I'm a libertarian with a lowercase L, right?
Independent.
Yeah.
You're an independent.
I'm an independent.
Yeah.
But the point is, I mean, how many people do you really, it's just in my own networks and people I talk to, even the most staunch Republicans, they, and there are probably, I would say, 5 or 6 people that I know are pro-Trump that I was in regular contact with right after the election, some of whom several weeks after said, I would say, are you doing okay? Are you handling this loss okay? And they'd say, well, it's not over yet. They were hanging on to that whole thing and these recounts and this and that. In the early hours of Georgia and then beyond. But fast forward to today, most of them, if not all the people I'm thinking of, don't believe in the big lie. They don't like the loss, but they don't think that there was some fraud that took the election from them. So, I just think that there's this core group that we always hear of, maybe these ninjas in Arizona, but it just seems to me that most people have kind of just said, there is no big lie. The guy lost. Let's move on.
Well, I think I would agree with that. So if I'm trying to remember what I said a few minutes ago, because I don't have these statistics written down regarding how many people do I think believe in the big lie. What do you think the ratio is for Democrats? Obviously, we know there are more Democrats than there are Republicans. Well, because
there's young people. All young people are dumb, and then they're Democrats at some point. Some of them never grow out of it.
Okay, but currently, what do we think the numbers are? Is is it 60% Democrat and 40% Republican? When you talk about people that actually identify, and then is there, so out of 100% of the people that identify with one party or the other, it's 60-40. That still leaves a huge group of Americans that aren't included in that, because we know there's a lot of people. The biggest
isn't 60 and 40 100.
Well, it's 100% of the people that I'm saying that are identifying with one or the other group.
I see.
I think that out of 100% of the people, I think probably Democrats are more like, it's more like, fuck, I don't know.
But in this day and age, if you're
30-40%, and then Republicans are probably 20%, and then the rest are independents. And when I said earlier is when Republicans win, it's because they've grabbed off parts of that independent. You just call everything that's not one or the other independent, and that can be your libertarians, or that could be your militias, that could be your white supremacy groups. You're just straight up independents, not
Well, maybe if you're born Democrat, you in this day and age you can identify as a Republican.
Well, you can. So anyway, I don't.
So what do you make of
who believes it? I think that nobody believes it. But that the problem is that the Republican elected officials currently in office right now, except for a handful, have decided to support the big lie theory because they are throwing.
What are we saying, like governors?
No, Congress people.
Oh, in the House, okay.
House, yeah, in the House and the Senate, and all elected officials, I think, probably. So they all seem to be deciding whether they're throwing in with Trump and the big lie, or they're not. So
Isn't it more so in the House than the Senate as far as Republicans buying into that?
There's more Republicans in the House, so I don't know if that matters. But I think it's. I mean, apparently it's all but 10 in the Senate
are saying we don't believe it,
and maybe 35 in the House, Republicans that have publicly voted one way or the other.
And that is what, for the sole purpose of getting the individual state voter suppression laws to pass? It's all connected?
Well, I think for a lot of the Republican elected officials, they have decided to a couple of things. They're going to throw in with Trump so they don't get primaried right by him, so they don't get on the list, and he doesn't target them and try to take retribution on them. And then I think that there's a large percentage of elected Republicans, both in the House and the Senate and in state governments, that are going along with voter suppression laws because they know it will benefit them in upcoming elections, which is just sad.
You know what really bugs me about all this is there's a lot of reasons, when we've talked, there's a lot of reasons why people, didn't want to vote for Hillary. She just was toxic for many people, and who knows what impact that had on the Trump victory. But when I reference it and I look at it from the position of a competition, a performance, the Republicans need to be honest and evaluate the performance that their guy gave over that 4-year period and understand that there are valid reasons why he lost his job. And so whether it's, any kind of pick a football game, something, you look at it and you say, hey, the other team didn't cheat. You just couldn't catch the ball, or, you sucked. You made mistakes that led to your loss. And that's what bugs me more than anything. And we've debated voter suppression laws and some of the actual verbiage that's in some of these. The most notable one was Georgia. And there are valid reasons why I can tell you, hey, this should be done. This, from my opinion, this should be done or that shouldn't be done. But I think we're aligned in the sense that this didn't need to be brought up. We don't need to make a change. There's no knee-jerk, need to make a change because of something that happened, some election theft and all of that.
Right.
So my point is, why can't Republicans just be honest and evaluate the performance that their guy gave over these last 4 years?
Well, I would ask you to answer that, but you're not a Republican. I think there was a thing called the Voting Rights Act, which was removed during Trump's administration, and that was an act that involved multiple southern states that that did not allow them to make certain changes to voting laws in their states. And that was put there for a reason, because in those states, and frankly, when it was enacted, those were mostly Southern democratically controlled states.
Let me ask you a question, though. Isn't there a constitutional amendment for voting?
I don't know. A constitutional amendment?
Like when the Voting Rights Act, how long was that? This is...
Since, I think, the end of Jim Crow. Right?
Which is...
Well, back in the 50s, I think.
Okay, and so the Voting Rights Act is the law of the land.
This is different than the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
But the act exists where?
This is the Voting Rights Act that named specific Southern states and required them to submit any and all changes to the voting laws in their states to the Justice Department for approval.
But the act exists on a federal level?
Yes.
And then how did Trump get rid of the act?
He had the corrupt Senate remove it.
Okay, so it was actually not he just with a stroke of a pen got rid of it.
Well, I mean, it was legislation, but he had to have the Senate submit, pass a bill to remove it, to sunset it, stop it, whatever.
Which then teed up what we see now with all these voter suppression laws,
right.
because the states don't have to submit approval,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
This is all part of one big plan. Get rid of the Voting Rights Act, right? Start the big lie about voter fraud, right? Just say it all the time. And then opportunistically jump on it whenever you lose an election, and then use that as a basis to allow the states that have a newfound freedom, because they're not under the demands of the Voting Rights Act anymore, and then let them go ahead and use the big lie as the reason why they need voters to pass these laws. This is not coincidence. This is not a fraud problem that's being dealt with. This is a Republican Party strategy that's been in place for the better part of 10 years.
But can't you only use the big lie, the fraud, big lie theory one time?
No, they've been talking about it from every election since before Obama. So one way or the other, we hear about this shit constantly.
Why was it never on my radar before?
Because you're a libertarian?
I mean, so they have literally been saying for 10 years that the elections are stolen from them?
Yeah, that there's a lot of fraud in elections, and that it's all being perpetrated by Democrats to steal elections from them, and that they need voter ID laws. That's not something that you just... All voter ID laws are voter suppression laws.
I disagree, but I always assumed there was a voter ID requirement.
Well, there isn't, and there wasn't, and when there is, it's voter suppression, and that is. You say you never heard of it. You've been hearing about this for forever.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've been hearing about it since we've been talking about it. Right. But historically, I just always assumed. I'm older now, right? It's been a long time since I first registered to vote. I just assumed that I proved who I was at that time, and I'm now in the system that somebody vetted me.
Well, these laws take a lot of shapes. I told you, like, one example, right, that I mentioned recently. I don't know if it's aired yet or not, but recently, if you're in one of these states that were covered by the Voting Rights Act prior to the Voting Rights Act, your polling place in your white neighborhood will be in the same place every year. You go to the same, how did you describe it? The same dark garage in your neighborhood and vote. That's where, my mom worked voting. She was a volunteer election worker every year I can never remember. And they were in some garage someplace. I thought it was weird. And but in those states, in the black part of town, in the black part of these counties, the polling place changed every year, and there was little effort made to inform anybody. That alone causes people to not be able to vote.
Well, listen, that happens because elections are done on a local level, and if you would just do what I've been saying, which is make it the fucking same throughout the whole country, you could have somebody manage this crisis.
Well, a lot of this stuff the fix was in with the Voting Rights Act. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. You rightly and logically, are going, well, you should do something to fix that, right? If that's the case. And maybe it has something to do with, elections being done differently everywhere. But we had something in place. It was called the fucking Voting Rights Act.
But that didn't have a voter ID requirement.
No, it didn't.
What do you make?
Because
let me ask you another question.
That's not a problem.
I understand. And this goes back to the comment I made a few minutes ago when I brought up Georgia. I'm not the one defending the need to have voter change laws that result in voter suppression. But when you read some of the details in these laws, yes, nobody's going to make an argument that you shouldn't bring people water. But if an element has an ID requirement or some type of vetting, I'm okay with that. So what do you make of this real ID, right? Are we all supposed to get this real ID?
Not for voting.
I understand. But everybody has to have it, right? Or is it just California?
No, it's everybody, but there's been an extension because they can't figure it out
because of COVID. But what is this? What is it, and why is it? Why do we all have to have a real ID?
I'm sure this is for security for international travel.
Is it just for travel?
Well, I mean, the only time it's gonna, even then, you don't have to get it if you have a passport. Right?
But you have. So do you have to
use your driver's license as your ID to board a plane? You're going to need a real ID. If you don't have a real ID, then you'll still be able to use your passport.
So it's only for travel.
I think so.
Are you? Is every person in this country required to have an ID?
I don't know about that.
That's not what this is. I don't either. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, but I don't know. But frankly, I don't think it has anything to do with.
You're right. It doesn't. But here's what I'm thinking out loud is I was aware that it got delayed too. It was supposed to already happen, I think, we were all supposed to have this real ID. But this change is coming. Like you just said, you can't use your regular driver's license to board a plane if you don't have a passport. You'll have to have this real ID. They, as in the royal they, are the government's making us do this. So if everybody in the country has to have a real ID, then what would be the problem with identifying voters?
Do you know the phrase red herring? Do you know what that means?
Give it to me.
Well, when I talk about voter suppression laws and you counter the discussion with voter ID stuff, voter ID is a red herring. A couple of things. It's just to get off the track, right? So when I talk about voter suppression laws, the thing where the polling place changes, here's another one for you. It has nothing to do with voter ID. You can have everybody in these black counties in these southern states carry their voter ID that would be compliant with the requirements, and you still are experiencing voter suppression laws that make it illegal to have polling places on Sunday. And why would it be? If you have a 2-week early voting period, why would Sunday be the one day out of the week that you make it illegal to vote? There's only one reason, because in the South, very often, large segments of black voters go to the polling places for early voting on Sunday. They're organized at their churches and they're provided transportation and they go vote. So if you come up with a voters, what are they called? They're not calling it voter suppression, right? Voter security, whatever, and you make it illegal on Sunday, what is the possible reason other than voter suppression?
Well, number one,
I don't give a fuck about voter IDs. Okay?
Yeah, but any attempt to change voting on Sunday, to me, is casting a broader net against. It's more anti-religion than I see it as a race thing. Because don't all religious people go to church on Sunday? I mean, still in this country, I don't know why. But I'm not taking that position. I'm not arguing.
I'm going to let you think that one over, because to come off of that, even if that's a piece of news for you, to come away from that piece of information, not understanding that was done by the state government, wherever that's happening, as a way to suppress the black vote, then you're just not listening.
Listen, I'm not taking that position. I'm not defending that position. I'm not defending voter suppression. I brought it up as far as the ID, and I'm going to take this opportunity for the first time in this podcast to use my catchphrase, solutionary.
Yeah.
We have to solve problems. So that whole, I agree and understand.
Solve problems that exist, Travis.
Yeah, but let me finish. Everything that you just said is trying to solve a problem that exists, but there's a better way. In other words, why are we worried about closing polling stations on Sunday? Why are we worried about moving polling stations in neighborhoods year after year not being the same if we just made it easy for people to vote in a more efficient and updated way?
Well, I don't have a problem with that, but that's not one of the things that's happening out there. So, I mean, right now, right here, we need to deal with laws that are going to suppress the vote in 2022 mostly, right? And so that suggestion, I mean, I'd be all for everybody getting a mail-in ballot and having 2 months to send them in. I don't think it matters.
See, and that to me is a bigger, more important issue. And I think we've talked about this too. Aren't there some states that don't allow
but it's not an issue that's on the table anywhere.
Yeah, but that's what difference does it make? I mean, don't you think that the way problems get solved is by people, whether it's, you know, two knuckleheads like us in a room talking about solving problems, or whether it's, you know, if that ultimately gets several people together to talk about how to solve problems in their community, that ultimately goes up the chain. That's the way I see this whole thing. And there are certain states that don't allow, we've talked about this, we've documented this, that don't allow mail-in voting without some type of valid, justified reason. I was calling it in California.
Those are also the changes that we're seeing in this batch of voter suppression laws.
For or against?
Well, making it harder to vote by mail,
which is dumb.
Well, I get it, but I don't know. I mean, I look. If we're going to talk about these issues, then I feel it's important to talk about what's really happening out there right now as we speak. And you said earlier, hey, well, you know, if the big lie is this and that, and isn't it incumbent upon the Democrats to just keep, you know, putting the truth out there to try to offset the lies and the corruption and the you know, just the immoral crap that's going on with Republicans in state legislatures. And okay, I will agree with you that anything that can be done to make it easier is great, but nobody's working on that, right? Right now, you have 47 different state governments that are passing laws that are going to make it harder for people of color to vote. That needs to be dealt with right now.
So is this 47 states or 47 combined counties within states?
47 state governments have put some form or are working on some form of voter suppression going through their legislatures. I'm not saying they're all going to pass them, but there's over 250 individual pieces of legislation going through the state legislatures of 47 state governments. I'm sorry. I want to keep it light. I want to be funny and all that, but for me, I don't think it's a joking matter, and I think people should wake the fuck up. And when I hear the information regarding this kind of being, you know, false equivalencies with, hey, well, we should just make it easier and this, I get that you're trying to find solutions. I'm trying to let people know what I am hearing and what I know to be fact about these issues, because there's way more misinformation and lies being put out about these issues than truth.
Yeah, I'll give you that as a matter of fact, but here's the point. I mean, you have me at a disadvantage because you clearly can...
I watch the news.
No, you can clearly speak from the position of what the Democrats are saying, hence my reference to your I'm a Good Democratic talking points paper.
That's okay. I
which,
have one.
By the way, they will also tell you what the Republicans are going to say to challenge it. So I'm not taking either of those positions, but I can look at it.
I don't actually have that, just so you know.
Not today. But I can look at it, and the reason I brought up the whole voter ID thing is with the real ID is if I can look at something and say that just doesn't make any sense. In other words, if, and I prefaced it with an if we're all going to be required to get some form of ID, then to have some ID at some point in the registration trail. I'm not saying every time you go to the garage that gets moved every year, you got to pull out your wallet. All I'm saying is at some point to get in some registration database, wherever that is, if you do it once at the time you're 18 and you're in, or you got to do it every year, whatever it is, to me, that's just not logical. It's not a valid argument that people don't have ID if we're going to be forced to have ID. That's not logical.
I can't think of a single reason why when someone goes to a polling place, why their ID would be required.
Yeah.
They're on a list. I mean,
right.
They can't vote in there unless they're on the list, which means they went through. Nobody in that polling place is qualified to make a determination whether they have the right ID. So consequently, when voter ID laws are passed in states, millions of voters are typically disenfranchised.
When you register to vote for the first time, do you have to provide your Social Security number?
I think it's been a long time for me, so I honestly don't know what the process is right now.
So I think we're saying the same thing, because you walk into that garage and somebody has a list with your name on it. That means you were registered and you're on somebody's list. They're waiting to see you. I'm not saying that the day you go there, you pull out your ID to say, yes, I'm that guy.
Well, that's what they're saying.
But that's not the point of this. The point is to solve problems. And if you have to register, whether it's to show your ID or your Social Security number, that is an ID. You've proved who you were at some point in the chain.
Well, okay, but when we talk about voter ID laws, those are laws that require you to come to a polling place and present your ID that qualifies under their state voting requirements.
Is this an element of many of these 47 voter suppression states that you referenced?
I assume I don't know. I mean, I assume it's an element of every single one. But this is the voting ID that we just discussed, that I told you you've been hearing about for over 10 years in the world of politics, coming solely from the Republicans year after year. I mean, it's just voter ID laws are just another way to try to eliminate black voters off the rolls. That's it. There's no other reason for it.
And the idea is what? That black people don't have ID?
Poor people do not. Poor people have more trouble obtaining IDs that will qualify for they make specific requirements about the IDs. Not every state has a California driver's license that we do. And maybe the real ID would be a bit of an equalizer. I don't know, but they're years away from getting that.
Are you in favor of, this is aside from this, are you in favor of some type of national form of identification?
No, not really. I mean, is that the Nazi part you were pimping earlier?
That's another story.
Yeah, because I mean, I just don't think that we need to carry papers. I just don't think that's the case. And so I just look. I don't know. I get where I like the whole solutionaries thing, but I don't. I think that our value here would be greater to try to put real information out there to try to offset some of the crap. And to the best of my knowledge, Travis, nothing I've ever said here isn't something that have I ever made a mistake? I probably have. But basically, when the things that we've talked about over the months that we've done this podcast, it's not information that I heard on some fringe, left-wing website or something. I don't even go on those websites, right? This is just all mainstream stuff. And typically, frankly, most of it right now is just the actual information that I feel people need to know to offset the outright lies coming out of the right wing.
Well, you and I, again, are more aligned than we're not. And, my position on this is, again, not coming from some right-wing website or any other medium for that matter. Right. It's just how I always look at things, which is logically and common sense. So I'll go back to close this part of the discussion and say, I agree with you that there's no problem that needs to be solved. There was no grand scheme to steal the election from Trump. There was no grand voter fraud. There's no, there is no big lie. That is the lie. The reason why Trump isn't in office is because he lost his job and he got voted out. And it's unfortunate that we still have one of the two major political parties in this country perpetuating that lie, and in many cases now continuing to draft laws that I have always viewed was the sole purpose of keeping them in power or making it easier for them to stay in power. That's the whole point of drafting these laws, is so they don't lose. And that's the wrong way to do it. You should evaluate your performance and look at why you lost, Was it that your message didn't resonate with the American people, or was it the messenger? Or maybe in this particular case, it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Do
you remember the after Obama won the first time? Do you remember the Republican autopsy of the 20?
Was it like the alien autopsy?
Yes, sort of. But the Republican Party on their own within the House. This is not a government function. They did a study. They called it the autopsy of the 2008 election, and to try to figure out how they managed to lose. How did they lose to? I think on the face of it, they were asking how did we lose the presidential race, the general election, to a candidate that virtually has no experience when we had much more experience.
We had a war hero. We had a senator.
McLean. I mean, really, the whole autopsy should have just been one line. I think. What was her name? The governor from Alaska,
Palin.
I think that probably McCain would have won that had it not been for Palin.
Could be.
That's my personal opinion. But then they went through and they looked at a lot of different things, and they came out with a very honest assessment of why they lost that election and a pretty decent roadmap for how they could go forward and become a competitive party again. And they rejected it. So 8 years of the Obama presidency, they rejected it before the Romney election, and yet they still kind of paid lip service to it. I mean, Romney was, one of the main things was, hey, you need to kind of, get on board with the Hispanic situation and, address some of their concerns as the growing future dominant, group in the country and so on and so forth, how you can't ignore them and you can't, and, black people as well. And then they promptly decided to, ignore. I mean, here comes Romney in the second election, right? Running against Obama. He says, yeah, listen, I think that the 11 million is illegal aliens, should self-deport. So, I don't, Romney is not the devil incarnate that I'm sure Cheney and Trump and some of these people, the true deep state. He's not the devil incarnate that I think some of them are. But that wasn't too bright. Self-deportation.
Was he trying to strike? Was he trying to say, hey, we're not going to be the heavy hand of government and come and remove you from your neighborhood?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I think he was. And so in that way, he was trying to address concerns from, because, the truth of it is that all through the whole 8 years of the Obama administration, they deported a lot of people, right? And so, they were doing the job that the government's supposed to do. You're supposed to deport people that aren't supposed to be here. And, they called Obama, maybe you never heard this, right? The deporter in chief?
Never heard that.
Never heard that? Well, and frankly, immigration wasn't even a hot button issue before Trump walked down those stairs and called them rapists and murderers, right? And build the wall. So, we watched, starting with the birther stuff, the Republican Party adopt and implement a racist-based fear campaign for what they think of as left of white America, especially in the Rust Belt and down south, and certainly not in California or New York City, but in these places around the country where there was an appetite for this, he just fed into the worst natures, right? And brought all the disaffected whites and all the racists and all the white supremacy groups and the militias and the Proud Boys. It's just unbelievable. And I don't think it had to be that way, really. I think if they had taken that autopsy from the 2000, I was afraid when I heard it. I'm like, oh my God.
Why? Because it was good?
No, yeah, because I'm like, they've identified, these guys have really figured it out, right? Because I didn't want lower taxes for corporations. I didn't want some of the things that traditional conservatives and libertarians and Republicans wanted. But there was no way I could see this wave of racist horseshit that Trump brought to this country, and the full-blown, unmitigated attack on the basis of our democracy. I mean, I'm a little bit, to this day, I can't really explain. I mean, you know, I want to see the other side of issues too, right? And so sometimes I think when I say like that, I'm like, oh, it's not possible that even Trump and whoever the hell aligns themselves with Trump and actual elected Republican officials, that they look at destroying the democracy, and what is the answer when they ask themselves what comes afterwards? What is it they think comes after they topple the democratic process in this country? And what reinstall Trump? Even if that happened, what it's not a democracy anymore. So
yeah, but do you really think, on that note, that
I don't think they're thinking about it, to be honest
do you think it's even possible to destroy the democracy? I mean, I know that's the catchphrase, but let's say that Trump actually tried to do that. That's what he was doing in those 4 years. You have to say, by all accounts, he failed because he lost his job over it. And even if you're willing to say that the January 6th insurrection
I agree.
was an attempt to overthrow the government, which of course it's not. I push back on all these panty wastes on Twitter.
You're spending too much time on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. That too failed.
Yeah,
So,
it did. If that was the attempt, and it was, and if that was, I mean, Trump failed. I mean, he's out of office. He didn't even get the two. I mean, the plan was for him to get 2 terms and destroy as many institutions as he could along the way. We can gut out the government offices, right? Gut out the government workers, and you know, this can all be coached in the longtime Republicans. Oh, we have a bloated bureaucracies and this and that. So a lot of this goes under that heading, and was what, you know, people are like, yeah, he's just doing what we've always said that should be done, right? But while he was doing that, I don't know if they just weren't looking or they weren't listening, but he didn't get rid of the extra weight at these departments. He gutted them completely. They have no leadership. The numbers are down. He drove out every career State Department person we had. I mean, that's not smart, right?
Well, it's not smart. It's not smart from a leadership perspective. And then we talked about this in comparison with Obama, in the sense that he knew how to assemble a team. So it's not only did Trump not know how to assemble a team, he didn't know how to keep a team. And from a leadership perspective, I think one of the things that you have to recognize is that when you hire people that are smarter than you, that doesn't diminish your importance. You know, that only maximizes it. You know, the fact that you're hiring specialists that you recognize that somebody is better than you at this task, and you put them in that role to make those decisions.
God, I'd have to say that for Trump, virtually every single person that was hired during his administration was smarter than him. Not saying that everybody that was hired had a more developed reptilian part of their brain or was more corrupt than he was. I mean, certainly in certain areas, he was like an idiot savant in the, you know, when you look at the things he managed to accomplish. But I mean, you know, Obama comes in, puts in a team, his team, the White House team. That's what the executive is supposed to do. Not supposed to gut the whole fucking government.
Are we going to have to change the name of the White House in 2021 with all this racist rhetoric? Can we call it the White House?
You know, that's a problem already. I've thought about that since I was a little kid, and that was a long time ago. I'm like, whoa, the White House. That seems odd.
So you're saying, yes, we have to change the name? Has that been brought up yet? I'm just surprised it hasn't been in this. We have to cancel the White House, folks.
AOC.
We're canceling.
Why don't you let her name it?
What would she possibly call it? Who the fuck knows?
No.
Oh my God.
Burgers and brats.
She has such terrible ideas.
Is she?
I mean, she's so, I don't know. She's, you gave me confidence because you would remind me, you would say, listen, these crazies on the left, they're not the real Democratic Party. You know, yes, they're loudmouths, but they don't represent what the core of the Democratic Party is trying to accomplish.
I still say that.
And I hope that's true. I mean, they give her and others, you know, the members of the squad, it's like, I don't know if they're growing, if they're taking on more leadership roles, if their voices are being heard, that's going to be a problem.
You know what's going to happen with that the squad or that group is, they are going to get worn down a little bit, right? So you get new members of the House, especially, and they come in and they're chugging on all 8 cylinders. They're people of color. They're women.
They're chugging on their little hybrids,
right?
Not 8 cylinders.
That's right.
Little hybrid and their electric power.
All 2 cylinders with an electric assist.
1.5 liter hybrid engine.
And
bullshit ideas.
Yeah, and I think that in this very hyperbolic, 5-6 years of politics, I think there was a lot for them to push back on. And so, for me, I like the way that, these type of members in the House on the Democratic side will there's a word I'm searching for, but I'm going to say will disperse into it these ideas. And yeah, a lot of them are going to be kind of on the fringe and far to the left. But I still believe that, they'll be met by more senior members and those ideas will be tempered. I mean, I don't have any problem with them being vocalized or put out there. But, there's no Green Deal legislation on the floor. It's not in any danger of coming anytime soon.
Well, that's why I have confidence too, because there was actually a report that came out a couple weeks ago that basically said AOC was one of the least effective lawmakers in Congress. And what they were basing that on is actual laws that she has drafted or authored and whether or not they've passed. Yeah. And she was ranked like almost the bottom 10.
Is she a second-term representative? Is that what she is?
Congress. Yeah. Didn't she win re-election?
House representative.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's the thing.
But as Pelosi dies, I mean, what is she, 81?
She's old.
And Pelosi has always pushed back on the squad, and they've challenged her leadership. They've challenged her.
For that very reason, yeah.
I know, but at some point she's literally going to die off, and then...
Who, Pelosi?
Yes.
But there's other people in the pipe, trust me.
Are they more middle of the road, or are they more crazy left?
They're going to be closer to Pelosi than they are to AOC.
Are you sure about this?
I'm pretty sure.
You better hope so.
Well, I do want you to be happy.
That zombie green BMW that you showed me a couple weeks ago, did they make it in a battery power one?
The zombie green. Oh, on the cover of the thing. Yeah. Well, here's what is, speaking of battery power, a great transition, by the way. MEK, right, is the new Mustang, all-electric Mustang. Evidently doesn't even look like a Mustang. But more important than that is the F-150 all-electric.
Yeah, the Lightning. I saw that.
Right? So that is definitely on my radar, right? So I have a 2002 Ford F-150 gasoline, regular cab, short
V8?
bed. No, 6-cylinder.
Is it?
Yep. And but it's it's got a torquey setup for the drivetrain and stuff. So and I bought it brand new, 0% interest, so paid it off because it didn't cost me a cent, right? I made money on the money in the bank at the time instead of, I had the money.
So what you'd make now.
I had the money. I could have just bought it, right? I think it was like, I don't know, what was it? Maybe with everything it was $2,500 or $25,000. I mean,
you 1%er you.
I know. And so but David's like, yeah, you're an idiot. Just buy it. Just going to buy it on time. It's 0% interest, nitwit. Why would we give them all that money? Just at the time, we were still making a little bit of interest on it. So that all worked out. I'm not even sure they don't offer that right now. I got to do a little bit of checking. But I just heard about the electric truck. I'm not so interested in the electric Mustang, but because I'm thinking. So my truck's got 70,000 miles on it, right? And it's not brand new anymore. It's a 2002, so it's going to be 20 years old next year. But maybe it's time. You know what the sales price on this truck is?
A lot, I'm sure.
It's $40,000. Boom, plus tax rebates and stuff. So it's under $40,000 when you all is said and done, and it's priced that way purposely. I heard a podcast interview with the CEO of Ford talking about both cars, and very interesting. They're going, hey, look, we want this is good for everybody, right? And we want people to to buy it, so we're pricing it accordingly, right? So,
but it's not even out yet, right? It's going to be a while. I think they took. I happened to be at a Ford dealership last week getting my oil changed, and the salesman told me that the day it came out, that dealership, all you had to do was put $100 deposit. I think they got 100 deposits overnight.
Wow.
And I want to say maybe like 100,000 nationwide people put deposits on that truck.
Well, here's the thing, right? I would not buy the first year of this electric car anyway. So that means that they need to get this car out this model year, get it out, find out what's wrong with it, and there will be plenty. Then fix it, then put another model year out.
What are you, an anti-vaxxer?
I'm a car buyer.
Isn't that the same argument the anti-vaxxers are saying?
Here's the thing. I bought one new vehicle in my whole life, and that was the truck I have right now, the Ford F-150. Bought it brand new off the lot. That's not my plan. It's not. Well, it's a possible plan.
Do you think you're going to get a used F-150 electric in year 2?
Well, year 2 or 3. At some point. Here's what I'd be looking for. Was year 2 better than year 1? Did they fix any of the problems? My guess is the answer will be yes. And then I won't feel like I'm buying. If I bought it right now, I was like, who the hell knows what's wrong with it, right? And then I still got a little time till I'm actually gonna need it. When I, my plan has been to keep my 2002 gasoline truck and drive it throughout my retirement, right? But maybe that's not the best idea, right? Maybe there's a little bit of money in it because it's pretty low mileage and it's a popular setup. So, regular cab, short bed is the most popular body style for a truck. And unless you're talking crazy trucks like yours, like the.
But it's all what I always say. It goes back to what is the utility. So it makes sense for Ford to make an electric F-150 because it's the number one selling truck in general, the F-150.
Right.
And anybody who's in the market for an F-150 next year or the next 2 or 3 years might look at that version over the gas one.
Because the gas one is what, 70,000, 60,000.
Well, they have so many trim levels. That's the thing. Like what you were saying about the electric one, it's the base price, and we want everybody to buy it. But they have probably 6 or 7 different trim levels for their other vehicles, so it's a wide range. It varies. But what I have always said about a truck in particular is it's got to do what a truck can do, which means it has to be able to handle the payload, has to tow, which I think this Lightning does, or close to it. Really, I think the initial numbers I read was really close on the towing capability.
Well, here's the thing. For me, so let's see, what does the truck have to do? It has to cart my fat ass around, sprightly, with a little bit of vigor, and it has to be big enough to put a refrigerator in the back or something of that size. And let me think, what else? Nothing. There's nothing.
But here's the other thing, that the 2 biggest things that all these electric vehicles have to solve. One is the range, which I think you personally could get around because you don't necessarily need to drive 300 miles without stopping.
Right.
But the other is you got to be able to charge it instantly. Like I need to go to a gas station type and get charges, get energy boost here in like 30 minutes. I can't do it overnight.
We're not there.
We're not there.
We're not there yet. I don't know that problem has been solved. Plus, I'm not sure that you can take an electric Ford and charge it at a Tesla charging facility.
That's the other knock. I want to say that Tesla has a certain type of charging system and all the other vehicles work well with one another. It's like every smartphone, you can interchange the cables, and then there's Apple.
I'm not buying a Tesla. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm never buying a Tesla because it's not a car company.
Do you think they're going to be the next DeLorean? Like at some point, he's not going to make it.
Too late. Is he going to be the next John DeLorean? Is he going to buy coke from federal agents? Apparently, he's a fucking genius. So the answer is probably no.
I don't mean him personally.
He may get arrested. Well, what I think Tesla's going to fail. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
I always have. It's not a car company in the basic sense of a car company. It's a tech company that's making a car. And there's another tech company that's making a car. I'm looking for cars.
There's a bunch of them.
I'm looking for electric cars from car companies. Okay, Audi, BMW, Ford. These are all good options, I think. Chevrolet. Why? I'm waiting now to hear about an electric Silverado because I'm a little torn. You know, I've been driving a Silverado.
Didn't they make that announcement?
I haven't heard it. So if there's an electric Chevy coming down the line, I haven't heard it. I like Ford trucks, but I also like Chevy trucks. So it really doesn't make that much difference. And really, I'm looking for a vehicle that's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. Now, I mean, my 2002 Ford F-150 cost what every gas car from that year cost to get things repaired. I spent a little money fixing things. Doesn't have that many miles on it. But I'm going to need, you know, if I'm going to keep it, I'm going to have to paint it. The paint has failed just from being in the sun more than not. I've never garaged it, you know, so I waited. But here's a good thing. I waited till the paint failed to get a cover for it. Smart, right? Smart move, right?
Isn't this the natural progression of things? I mean, you're right. That's a good, why have the major car companies not really been behind this electric vehicle push sooner than they have? I mean, go back to hybrids, right? I mean, Toyota with the Prius was one of the first big car companies to get behind the hybrid vehicle, huge seller all over the world. But it was a hybrid.
How? It looks like a hand vac.
Well, that's the other thing is every attempt to make something other than gas looks like something you'd never want to drive.
Well, you know, one of the things, I'm glad we're on a little lighter trail here because I got to tell you, one of the things
I got like 3 other things I can make you upset about.
No, it's okay. I think one a day might be enough, but cars, you know, are one of my favorite things. And in car design, I have no claim I'm not a car designer or anything. I'm not saying I could do it better, but I look at cars over the years on the road, even today. Prius is a prime example. I don't hate it because it's a hybrid or something. I hate it because it literally looks like a fucking dirt devil.
That's exactly what it looks like,
right? And
they didn't change it.
It doesn't have to.
They kept that design.
No, when they do change it, they make it worse, not better.
Do you think that's why Tesla was so successful when it launched? Because it's kind of a cool looking, sporty car.
You know, I do. I personally do not like the way Teslas look. I don't like the shapes of the bodies. I mean, there might be one out there. I mean, the original Tesla Roadster was okay, but it was a teeny tiny sports car. But then I don't even know the model numbers, but except for one. One is the Tesla 3 or something. Kind of looks like a frog on wheels.
Doesn't that mean they have a 1 and a 2?
I don't know what they call the S or something. There's one that probably the most expensive one that has the most elaborate body design. And even that one I don't like. I mean, it's got everything. It's got the wide tires. It's got the wedge shape. It's got, you know, this and that. But there's things about it that don't look like cars to me. And that's the part, right?
Yeah, like the inside when you get in it. Looks like a goddamn cockpit.
Right. And if it was cool, I wouldn't even mind that. But just to look at the window molding and then the way, okay, so you don't need a radiator. Put something in.
Are you going to be able to handle all that tech inside the car?
Yes.
Big screens, vibrating, whatever.
Yes. I think so. Are you going
to have to start playing video games before you get a car so you're used to it?
Well, you know, in my PlayStation 2, I think it was, I had the race games, the cool one. I'm going to forget the name of it now, but, you know, raced on a lot of tracks.
Gran Turismo?
Yeah, Gran Turismo. So I eventually got Gran Turismo about the time I stopped playing video games. But prior to Gran Turismo, Debbie had found some preview version of it that only had a few levels, but it was a year and a half for half price over the regular game. So for as little as I was going to play any kind of driving game, and I did play it quite a bit, it was fun. And I could drive a lot of different cars, especially Mini Coopers. That was really awesome. But then really I just play first-person shooters. If there's not a gun in my hand as I'm running around in these...
Is that morally wrong now? Are you as a Democrat,
no.
Are you allowed to play first-person shooter games?
I don't.
Are the Democrats, is that on the list of things that we can't be doing?
Not that I've heard. It's not on my list, and not the one I'm getting. So.
Is that on the list?
It was therapeutic for me. I mean...
It is, right?
Right.
Why do you shoot a real gun?
Yeah, because that's not therapeutic. That's going to be dangerous for somebody.
For you to shoot a gun at a target?
No, but I don't have time to go to a target. You know, I've done it, but, you know, I don't have time for that, right? And
when was the last time you shot a gun?
Was in Hawaii. it's so funny because Debbie and I went to the grand opening of, you know who, what's the guy's name? It's not Roy. It's the other Japanese chef that had a bunch of restaurants, Sam Choi. We knew somebody that was connected up with Sam Choi. We got invited to the grand opening. We were in Maui at the time. And so we went to the grand opening of this Sam Choi's restaurant on a Sunday, just poo-poos and free drinks, right? And so
this was a while ago.
But I'd already stopped drinking. So we're there, and it's in a shopping center that's still there, and across from it, so the one side of Sam Choi's faced the main drag there in Lahaina, and then on the other side, you went out that door into the shopping center, open, not a mall. Right directly across from it was an indoor shooting range. And I'm like, wow. So we go over there. Debbie has a few drinks, so she's feeling no pain. And I'm like, indoor shooting range? Oh, what is this? Never seen one of these, in Orange Mall or something.
Especially in Hawaii.
So I go in there. So all the guns are cabled to the counter. So
like at Chuck E. Cheese?
I don't know. I've never been to Chuck E. Cheese. I don't have any kids. So yeah, they shoot real bullets. They're real guns, whatever, many different kinds. And they're cabled so that you can't turn them past a certain point and shoot somebody. So all you can do is aim them. And when you're aiming this way, it's fine. The cables don't bother you or anything. But you can't turn them around. It's just weird the way it works. And so they even and Debbie had quite a few drinks, so they let her shoot. And I'm like, so we were just next door. There's no problem with that. Can't hurt anybody with this.
How'd you do?
Well, I bought bullets for and shot a 45 because that's something I had never shot. Right, Debbie bought bullets for and shot a 22. So she shot a few
pistols.
Of them.
Hers was a pistol.
Yeah, all pistols. Well, yeah, I think these were only pistols. I don't remember any machine guns or anything like that. But it was fun. She was a little, 3 sheets to the wind, so she got tired of it quick. She wasn't really hitting much. No offense, Debbie, and then I think I shut off the rest of her bullets. But I did shoot my bullets I bought for the 45, but it was like 10 bullets for $25 or something. So it was really expensive.
That is expensive, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're not just selling me bullets. I can come in there and shoot for nothing, right? So yeah, that was kind of. I mean, how did I do? I don't remember. I mean, I've shot guns before. I can calm down and squeeze it off.
But that to you was not as therapeutic as playing a first person shooter on PlayStation.
Oh. I was amazed years later when I got a PlayStation and I played Call of Duty.
Were you online playing with other 16-year-olds?
No, never online. The first shooter I played was Halo on.
That was a good one.
On what was it?
Xbox.
It's Xbox,
yeah.
Right? With Brian, and so used to play on his and played a lot of Halo, and I liked it. Then. And I remember when I was playing the Halo, I had tried to play somebody's PlayStation. I'm like, oh, this controller's retarded. It was just different. It wasn't retarded. It was actually better, I thought. And then I got to play. When I had it. So when I needed to buy, I really wanted another Blu-ray player when that was a thing. So I bought 2 PlayStations, right? So I could play video games in 2 different places. So 2 PlayStation 2s and I'm like, well, this is practically what a Blu-ray player cost. No, it was $400. Wasn't, but Blu-ray players would go on to be available for $37.50 at the grocery store pretty soon. But so I had a couple. We played movies in them and stuff too. I bought the controllers for them. But then, I played just all first-person shooters. Every Call of Duty one for several years. Some other space ones, but all shooters. Right. So none of the ones where you're like looking up from above and your character is down below wielding a sword or something. Third person, none of those. And then the driving games
besides, when there's actual shooters, who wants to go back to a sword?
Right. Or they make shooters where you're looking from up above, like you're disembodied, and I just don't get it. So yeah, and driving games were like first person shooters. You're right there in the cockpit, they usually have different perspectives. I don't know if you've ever played.
Yeah, you can change the view.
Right. You're in the car. You're
right.
Above the car. You're behind the car. Right. Just in the car. Right. So I'm looking over the steering wheel. But here's the thing. I sucked at them. I'm the worst driver on those ever. Right.
It's like anything. You have to dedicate so much time to those goddamn video games.
Yeah. But I could shoot pretty good. I mean, I really liked any of those shooter games, especially the Call of Duty, where they had scopes. So I could sit up on a bridge and just bring those crosshairs in on somebody's head and shoot them.
Is there a correlation between, we have so many shootings, mass shootings in this country, and kids playing video games? I mean, I've heard some arguments about that, and then you have people in other countries say, hey, we have these shooter games here too, and we don't have the problem that you guys have in the U.S., even countries that have guns.
I don't think there's a correlation. I mean, all the actual studies that I've heard about, nobody's ever, and I'm not really too biased one way or the other. I don't, I mean, if they said there was, I would probably believe them, but I don't see it. I played a bunch. I mean, I played hours and hours. I mean, if it was brainwashing me to go shoot somebody in real life, I would have killed them already.
Yeah, but you're not susceptible to go kill somebody. So is there something that's
don't know,
triggered?
I don't know, dude. I truly think if I had a gun and in some of these situations that we've discussed along the way, if I had a gun and I got pissed off, I mean, I know for sure. I had a friend, his name was Terry, and me and Debbie, he used to hang out with him and his wife. And one time we went to some street carnival, and we had been drinking somewhere before, so we were drunk and probably obnoxious, right? So it's a street carnival ride, right? God, I can't remember what it was, but the guy had a lot of control on it. So we were probably smart alecky, obnoxious fuckers getting on it, and then the guy just kept us up there and fucked with us.
Like a roller coaster or something? It
wasn't a roller coaster. It wasn't a tilt-a-whirl, but it was something where we were in a, on seats in a cage, and then there's an arm, and there's a couple of them.
Mm-hmm. And, spinning you around.
Yeah. And so when we got off that thing, I was going for the guy, right? I'm like, I want to fucking kill you right now.
How old were you?
We were drinking in bars, so I was probably 25. And so I got off the thing, and I'm like, I am going to kill him. I'm going to, fuck you. I'm going to kill you right now. I'm fucking killing you. And they're like, stop, just stay back here. I was a little bit, so now I'm a little drunk and very nauseous, right? I'm horking, and I'm like, I'm going to go find a restroom, and then I'm going to kill you. And, yeah, I think if I had a gun, on me at that point, I would have shot him, because I mean, I cannot remember. I just remember the feelings, like, you know what, that was, you need to pay for that, right? And so I don't know too many other situations like that, but I don't think.
Well, what's the end of the story? Did he pay for it?
No. Oh no, I had to go find a bathroom and throw up.
And then you never came back out for him?
By then the girls are going, hey, because here's the thing. I think Terry probably had a gun, right? He always
on him.
I don't know. He had a what is it? .457 Magnum. He had a big gun. I mean, I shot that gun with him. We went to a range one time, so I don't think he was carrying it around with him. But he had skeet shooting rifles and shit like that. But me, I'm not Mr. Gun.
Maybe you should just be a knife guy.
Well, I have a knife.
Do you carry one on you?
In my truck.
Oh, but you don't have it like in your sock or on your belt or anything?
No, because I'm too fat.
Because you don't want to look like a Republican?
Whatever. Yeah. Too heavy, going to pull my pants down. You know what I mean?
Well, you can have a small folding knife.
I have a quick flip out knife in my truck.
Yeah, that's all you need.
The one that our friend lost in Vegas. Remember?
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a small one though. Little Kershaw, I think.
Yeah. That was a great knife. I found it at the airport.
That somebody else had to get rid of.
Right. Exactly.
If you keep it in your pocket, where the clip is hanging out, then you might be mistaken for
a Republican,
little right wing.
No, maybe if I'm not wearing now if I don't wear a mask and I wear that on my belt.
Are you not wearing the mask? Are you letting that down a little bit?
I don't wear it outside anymore for any reason. As soon as I come out of someplace,
that was the other thing I was going to tell you was your buddy, your favorite, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah,
she
just needs a mask because she's got the face of a horse.
She's not very attractive, is she?
She's an ugly ass woman.
That's the thing is like they're both maniacs. You take an AOC, a pretty face with a loud mouth and nothing good to say, but goddamn. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said something like, you got to wear masks indoor, right, on the House floor. And then Pelosi I think, is enforcing the mask rule. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene said something analogous to Nazi Germany about how what the Nazis made the Jews wearing armbands.
Yeah.
And so then she said,
that's right.
So did she get muzzled or censored or?
I don't know, is there something you can talk about for a few minutes?
Yeah, no worries. Well, you want to wrap up for today, my friend?
Yeah, let's wrap up. I got to go to the bathroom. Hey, it's been great.
You literally have to go to the bathroom. I could stretch out the exit until Mike makes a mess in the studio. It's been fun as always.
Bye.
Bye.